Welcome to our presentation for Management 491 Group 5.
We will be presenting a case analysis of Nissan Motor Company. Our presentation will include the following sections: a company overview, followed by opportunities and threats, strengths and weaknesses, and we will finish with a strategic priority and recommended response. Let's begin with the company overview. Nissan's vision is to enrich people's lives. Their mission is to provide unique and innovative automotive products and services that deliver superior, measurable values to all stakeholders in alliance with Renault. Nissan was formally established in 1933 and changed its name the following year to Nissan Motor Company. The first car produced was called DAT. DAT was an acronym of the company's investors' surnames. Initially, Nissan produced trucks for the military market and small utility trucks. But by the 1960s, there was a rapid increase in production and exports. In the 1980s, Japan even overtook the United States as the world's top automobile producing country. Then, Japan was struck with a devastating 9.0 magnitude earthquake, a subsequent tsunami, and an eventual nuclear emergency. Production across Japan shut down completely, dropping Nissan's production 24% within 6 months. Despite record loss, Nissan gained back the momentum of business operations by implementing protective measures which stabilized the situation, generated income, and prevented future disruption. These measures included sharing information with global regions, allocating supply given capacity constraints, managing production processes to anticipate bottlenecks, and empowering rapid and flexible action. Today, Nissan is a multinational automobile manufacturer. The company ranks amongst the top 3 car manufacturers in Japan and the top 5 in the world. In 1999, Nissan's merger with Renault, a French automobile manufacturer, achieved a profitable and balanced growth for the two partners through the creation of a global alliance. As manufacturers, their entire business model revolves around bringing newer, better, and more desirable products to the market. Over the past few years, that has meant championing electric and autonomous vehicles.
Hello, my name is Wyatt Antoine, and I will be speaking to you about the general environment that Nissan faces, some industrial environment factors, and opportunities and threats that Nissan faces. Current trends that Nissan faces can be broken down to a variety of categories. For example, economically, Nissan still faces the effects of the Japanese economic recession that happened in the wake of the 2011 earthquake and tsunami that happened at Fukushima. The collective damage done to the Japanese economy equated to some 16.9 trillion Japanese yen and caused an international disaster. The damage resulted in some 80% of the Japanese automotive industry suspending production, and Nissan itself facing damage to 6 of its major production facilities and 50 of its suppliers. Needless to say, the economic impact of this disaster nearly crippled the Japanese automotive industry, which to this day is still in somewhat of a decline. Other economic factors includes a consumer base increasingly focused on reduced costs, and the fact that Nissan to this day still conducts all of their business and aggregates all of their sales in Japanese yen. This leads to the somewhat unforeseen consequence of the fact that the Japanese yen is directly tied to Nissan's net profits rather than using a pegged currency, and that any fluctuation to the Japanese yen ultimately means a fluctuation to the gains of Nissan itself as a company. Sociocultural trends include an increased consumer focus on environmental consciousness and purchasing increasingly low-emissions vehicles and hybrid vehicles, or hybrid electric vehicles, HEVs for short. The demand is so high, in the West particular, in fact, that some 7.5 million units are estimated to be in demand by 2020. Domestically, another issue Nissan faces is changes surrounding the Japanese work ethic. While Nissan flourished, as many Japanese companies have, with a rigorous work ethic and culture, that very same discipline and culture is beginning to show itself as more of a liability than a benefit to Japanese society. According to a report filed by the British Broadcasting Company, Japanese overtime culture has resulted in Japan having some of the longest work hours in the world, and consequently, unprecedented levels of employee stress and burnout. Meanwhile, globally, Nissan faces the issue of a overwhelmingly negative brand image to some due to a string of recalls that they faced in the early 2000s. To this day, though Nissan has ultimately corrected the issues with these products, that brand image still remains. Demographically, Japan as a whole is facing a national crisis, having the lowest birth rates since, well, they've been recorded in modern history. And with much of Japan's aging population facing retirement soon, they're going to need to find a new source of labor, innovation, and ideas domestically if they want to remain competitive on the global scene. Nissan has gone on record stating that politically the biggest trend that they want to pay attention to is the global increase in environmental regulations. Though Nissan does a very good job currently of keeping up with these environmental regulations, as regulations become more and more stringent and emissions will be more and more enforced, it's eventually going to cost more and more money to keep up with these trends, which is something that many of the members of the automotive industry are uncomfortable with. Moving on, the most salient technological trends in the automotive industry are related to increasing the efficiency of fuel cell batteries, increasing hybrid vehicle technology, and looking more and more into self-driving and automotive driving cars. Nissan has established themselves in all of these factors, which is something we'll touch base on later. Globally, the biggest factor that they have to worry about are increased tariffs related in North America, and particularly the US. As tariffs increase and NAFTA is slowly stripped away, Nissan faces the issue of how they will import cars globally to their biggest consumers, mostly the West and the United States. Though Nissan is a Japanese company and traditionally wouldn't be thought of as being affected by the end of NAFTA, a large amount of their vehicles are produced in Mexico. And finally, the last physical trend worth noting is changes, particularly regarding to Nissan's, I'd say, response to physical change rather than any change in the environment itself. You see, before the big environmental disaster at Fukushima, Nissan really didn't have any established method of dealing with these natural disasters. However, following this, Nissan has developed incredibly detailed recovery plans developed by the Recovery Committee, which I'm sure they'll carry forward with them into any future issues. Moving on, for a quick breakdown of the industry itself, we can easily classify this as an oligopoly due to the fact that many companies are tied through mergers in the automotive industry. There are high barriers to entry, and there's an extreme amount of product differentiation. If you look off to the right-hand side of the page, we have a breakdown of the automotive industry and the 5 factors that are involved in it. Bargaining power of suppliers is medium. Bargaining power of buyers is medium. Threat of new entrants is low. Threat of substitutes is low, but industrial rivalry is very high. Lastly, we're going to look at some opportunities and threats that Nissan faces. Opportunity-wise, Nissan has a lot going for them. They've put a massive amount of money into their research and development programs. In fact, compared to their rivals, they've spent a disproportional amount on research and development, which has led to them having a huge advantage in the hybrid vehicle department and even with their automotive driving department, which they've expanded upon by opening Infinity automotive driving labs globally, with their first center being located in Singapore. Which segues into their next major advantage, their foothold in the global market. Nissan has been quick to expand upon and break into new and emerging economies around the world, including that in China and India. Threat-wise, Nissan currently has their currency tied directly to the Japanese yen and need to be cognizant of any changes with the yen in the future. They also need to worry about increasingly stringent environmental regulations and fierce rivalry and competition in markets that they're establishing in, as there's always a chance that a more competitive market may emerge within these developing economies like China and force Nissan out entirely.
In this next section, we will review the strengths and weaknesses of Nissan as it relates to their resources and capabilities. Strengths. Nissan initially struggled to establish itself as a global automotive leader. The strength of the Renault-Nissan alliance allows global expansion, increased market share, and investment for new products. Cars are now manufactured in 20 countries and offered in 170 countries. To maintain a competitive advantage, Nissan is able to improve brand value with their capacity to offer different types of cars. Nissan ranks 5th in the automotive sector in terms of brand. Another strength is using diversity recruiting to attract employees. Nissan believes through diversity, they are stronger and more competitive. Using a vast range of talent and qualities, their employees produce fresh concepts and create value for the organization. Chairman and CEO of Renault, Carlos Ghosn, has transformed this organization. He has helped Nissan embrace its diversity as a valuable management asset. And now, with a well-managed operation and increased investment into R&D, focus is now on the future, creating new products, leading to more timely and frequent releases. This keeps more than customers happy. Employee turnover is low, averaging 4.7% over the last 3 years. Weaknesses. Although Nissan's cars are becoming better with reputation improving, there are still weaknesses. Nissan has weathered through a series of recalls and product repairs, and although they recalled less cars than some of its competitors, it created a competitive disadvantage as it negatively impacted brand reputation, customer loyalty, and trust. Another weakness is lack of product depth, a lack of ability to offer luxury vehicles. As a result, the scope of the product is a temporary disadvantage as they don't always meet their customer needs. While Nissan has recently moved up in brand value ranking, the threat of brand value still exists amongst their competitors. Lastly, their marketing attempts have not always helped the organization to regain their reputation, and it lacks the ability to promote their products and highlight brand awareness.
Before we continue, let's give a brief strategic overview. Nissan's competitive advantages include a strong research and development resource, manufacturing the vehicles globally, good competitive costs, flexible management teams, and their low-cost electric products. Their competitive scope is centered around their cost leadership and focused differentiation, which relies heavily on their technological advantage. Meanwhile, their problem statements involve the need to efficiently allocate research and development expenditures, facing increasingly strict environmental regulations, and failure to make full use of its potential and take advantage of its growth in the global market. Their strategic priority, therefore, can be summarized as its need to address impending environmental regulations, because failing to do so would restrict where Nissan can sell its products globally.
Option 1. Nissan will design an app that will bridge dynamic trip planning with public transportation. This provides a technological advantage, but will also cater to the cost-focused consumer. Option 2. Nissan will provide automated electric vehicles for on-demand transportation and will partner with Lyft, leading to mutual gains while still supporting the priority of embracing environmental regulations. While Option 1 fulfills the strategic priority, it also indirectly discourages the use of private consumer vehicles, potentially reducing sales. Nissan's competitive advantage is their price, and Option 2 best conforms with the VRIN framework. Our strategic recommendations. It's valuable because the Nissan Leaf remains as the world's most bought electric vehicle. It's rare because this arrangement does not currently exist and has never been done before. It's imperfectly imitable because all big car manufacturers have created pure electric-powered models, but none can match the cost and value of Nissan's cars. And it's non-substitutable because although there are other substitutes and other electric vehicles, the Leaf is available nationwide today and does not require waiting. Implementation of this strategy relies on resources the company already possesses and therefore can deliver the strongest competitive advantage. Nissan and Lyft will work together to create the software that connects the customer to the vehicle. Initially, our service will be tested in India due to its dense population, young demographic, and technology-savvy customer. After initial tests prove that the outlook for the strategy is positive, markets to enter should be chosen based on favorable demand and factor conditions and market growth prospects. Moving forward, we predict Option 2 will add significant value by providing Nissan an opportunity to use its electric vehicles to gain early mover benefits in an industry. This allows consumers to gain trust in the technology and allows Nissan to collect valuable customer reviews and data before its competitors.
This concludes our presentation. I hope you have enjoyed it and have a wonderful evening.